You know, of all the decks to come back to after like 2 months of not playing, this is probably the best deck to play. Yeah, because it's like
No, it's the only deck that I had.
Oh,
This is
well,
the deck
yeah.
I had 2 months ago.
Hey everyone, this is Curb Knight. Well, finally back at it, bringing you another standard match. And since I posted my last standard match, we have had the release of 2 new Stride deck sets here in English. That of course being Luard and Shiranui. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of those Stride deck sets today, as we see Luard being piloted on the left side. Now it's actually going to be going up against a kind of a pretty old deck at this point. That's going to be Prison. So we'll go ahead and see how Luard does up against Prison. Now I do think the advantage is probably with Luard. Not only is it a much newer deck, but I think that Luard inherently has quite a few ways that it can kind of mess around with Prison and not really be bothered too much by it. Mostly the fact that you can rebuild your board really easily, so you don't particularly care about losing all of your units into the rearguard circle, and you don't tend to use a ton of resources. In Luard, you use like 2 CB a turn maybe, but we'll see how things end up developing. So I'm going to be calling down that Painkiller behind the Vanguard in order to kind of guarantee that damage, which is of course going to get pushed, using the Painkiller to Soul Blast 1 and draw a card. So with the Morfessa and the Painkiller, we are currently at Ritual 2. The magic number for Ritual is going to be 3, because at that point is when Morfessa becomes a 15k attacker, and I believe also there's like a grade 1 that gets 5k, there's a grade 1 that is at 2k, so it's pretty impactful. Anyways, we do see the Risota Pink here being ridden, choosing to imprison a card from the hand, kind of just deciding what we want to go there. Looks like we do have the Maple in hand. That would definitely be a very good discard target, because once we discard to ride into grade 3, we will just be able to, you know, automatically call it out. We could just get a free beater for absolutely nothing. I guess it depends on the hand, which tells us what we should imprison here. We probably have a lot of things, but it looks like we are going to be imprisoning that Maple, which is kind of questionable, but we'll see if it matters in the long run. Anyways, calling down 2 copies of the little secretary lady, which is going to be like punishing if you call anything from the prison. Of course, just swinging 18 at the Vanguard. Not going to be blocking that because it is just going to be too big of an attack to block at this stage of the game. So we kind of have to decide what we're going to discard here. Luard's still definitely having a lot of cards in hand. Going second is also kind of where most Stride deck sets want to be, and then of course the extra draw that you get from the crest does mean that Stride deck sets tend to be playing around with a lot more cards in the early game than other decks normally would be. So we're going to be riding into that, what's his name? It's not Leafall, is it? It might be Leafall in all honesty. Anyways, one of the good things about Luard is that it is actually able to kind of put up a really good board because it plays such a huge quantity of grade 1s in the early game. Looks like we're going to be using the Prison ability to Soul Blast 1 and call out the Maple that we imprisoned, and then of course the skills of both of those secretaries are going to be activating, allowing it to Soul Blast 1 and draw a card since something was called from the Order Zone. So just going to be swinging with the Maple, calling out another column of that one grade 1 that I don't know the name of yet, as well as the 5th attack PG, which is kind of completely worthless in this matchup. I think if we had that in hand, that's probably the better thing that we should have put into Prison, but thanks to the fact we have Ritual 3, this thing is going to be a 13k attacker, the grade 1, not the PG. But of course the PG is just a 6k base, meaning that, you know, you're not really going to be hitting a lot of good numbers. If that had even been like an 8k or even a 7k, we would have been able to swing for 20k there. But I guess we must have forgotten about the Ritual 3 ability, because we saw that guarded with a 5k guard. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that should be at Ritual 3. I don't think it's GB locked. I'll have to double check on that. Anyways, let's go ahead and hop back into the game. You're going to be riding into the Seraph Snow using the skill to Counter Blast 1 and imprisoning 2 cards. Just going to be imprisoning the entire column there. and just kind of ramping the prison. Now we do need one more card in the prison in order to actually use Seraph Snow's skill. We can't superior ride to grade 4, so we are just going to be staying on this. And of course we probably want to be having that that triple drive there, and looks like we did find it, because this on place is going to go ahead and counterblast 1 to imprison the Maple once again. So Maple going into the prison, kind of the exact opposite of where you want her to be. I think honestly we probably should have just discarded her, because that means that she would have been in prison. I know we are probably aiming to like intercept it away, but you kind of do have to understand that against prison, you're not really going to get a chance to kind of dispose of your rear guards during your opponent's turn. Kind of another reason why that PG is kind of just, or the 5th attack PG is going to be absolutely wasted, because 9 times out of 10 it's not going to survive to the battle phase, so there's not really any point of using it in this matchup. As we do see the cycler, the hand cycle, going to be forcing Luard to put a card from hand to prison and then drawing another card, putting the cat, which is, I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about that. I still don't know all the cards in the opponent's or the Luard player's hands, but I feel like there have to be cards that you want to imprison before you imprison that. Another reason why this matchup is kind of interesting, we do see the turquoise there. Is there any turquoise? Yeah, it might be. I don't know. I don't know. Prison cards. What do you take me for? Someone who plays control decks? But anyways, one of the interesting interactions is that the ability to imprison cards from drop means that Luard's ritual count does technically get lessened as prison gets stronger. Looks like we just put it back in tap. Wouldn't that be fortunate? But of course, remembering to untap there. Swinging at the Vanguard for a very clean 31. I think we honestly just take this. It is triple drive, so you kind of just have to hope that our opponent doesn't hit too many crits. But we see one crit coming down and a second crit coming straight on after it, giving an extra 10k to each unit. So we're going to be eating 3 damage from this one swing. We did get a defensive critical trigger there, so that's going to make things a little bit easier to fend off these last 2 attacks. But at the same time, that turquoise is going to be a swing with a battle door effect, because we do have at least 2 cards in the prison. So there is definitely the possibility you either have to give up 3 cards from hand or go to 5 here. But I think realistically the best option is probably to just to guard the whatever her face is, the one that you can guard with 1 card and then eat another damage. Sure, you're pushed to 5, but that gives you plenty of resources for the next turn, and you kind of don't have to really worry about being damage denied, which is a real problem against prison. But if you're going to 5, all you really have to do is kind of just guard all the attacks that are incoming, which is, to be fair, not always the easiest thing to do, but you know, I guess you have all the CB in the world, and you just kind of have to manage it responsibly, I guess. But we do see the Luard player doing exactly what I said, just guarding the first attack. It's just me 1 card guarding 15k, because it was only like 33, I believe, and then just taking the turquoise's attack. Or is there turquoise? She might be called Aqua or something. Prison cards, once they stop using the color system, oh, that just confused me. Anyways, gonna be discarding a grade 1, I think that's the intercept one, in order to ride into Luard, using the Leofall to Soul Blast 1, and then of course draw a card. Discarding a Luard to stride, because you do one of the issues with Luard is when you go second, you do actually have to have stride fodder, because you don't really get your free strides until your turn 4. Looks like we are discarding. Oh, we're using Leofall's skill. Since a grade 4 Luard was placed, we discard a card and we call it back, and then just using the skill of the Drag Heart Luard there, counterblasting 1 and just searching out 2 cards. Looks like we're gonna be checking the prison to see what we kind of want to call here. Let's see, if I'm thinking what we want to call here, we could theoretically call the top 2 checker. But I think the real thing that we should be doing here is we're trying to empty out the prison. Like, we have a lot of good cards in prison. Like, I think you probably want to counterblast 1 here, get the Morfessa. That's going to be a 13k attacker, not 15k attacker. And then if we call another one of the grade 1s from the prison, we can have a nice 23k column, which is over defensive. We could probably call out the Maple, and maybe we even just like overcall it just to get it into the drop zone, because, you know, that's kind of what we've been missing. We had to end up using the the Leofall skill there in order to use Stride skill, but if we just not imprisoned the Maple from hand and discard it for Ride deck, we would have had it in the drop zone anyway, and we wouldn't have had to discard a card, and we would have just gotten the Maple back. We could have easily just retired it for Luard skill, and then, you know, call more things from prison. But it looks like we are kind of deciding what we want to call. Definitely Luard is a very toolboxy. It can be a very tanky deck too. And you do kind of have to there's a lot of options and a lot of thinking that goes into this. But I think at this point, you kind of just call your biggest beaters and you want to smack face as hard as possible, because you are at 5 and you're looking down what's her name? Seraph Purelight in the next turn, most likely, because they technically do have like 8 copies of it. So if you're playing against Prison, I would just anticipate the Purelight on turn 4 every single time. Looks like we are going to be going for that card, and we're also going to be calling the PG on 5th attack. Not sure why we're doing that. Prison is a 3 attack deck, so that card is just kind of absolutely useless. Like, I know you can deck them with that, but surely there has to be a better target than just like a 6k vanilla, effectively. The Semias, okay. Checking the top 2, calling out the Stride Fodder Dragon, which is definitely an interesting include. I don't really think Luard needs that card, since, you know, it is just a Astrolabe Dragon. I don't think Luard even plays the Stride Fodder Dragon set 13, because, like, it's not necessary. You don't really discard at all. I think just playing the Luards in the main deck for the Drag Strider kind of just serves the double utility there for your first strike, because you realistically should, when you're playing Luard, you realistically should only pay the cost for Stride once, that being, like, of course, your first Stride turn. But looks like we are going to be using the Prison Skill, Counter Blasting V1, and calling out 2 things. Going to be calling out another 5th attack PG and the Maple. I see. Didn't we imprison the Interceptor? Like, why didn't we call that? That would have been 8k. Would have made not actually, if it's behind the grade 3, it doesn't make that much of a difference. But still, I think you should always just, you know, call it out. You need to reduce the prison as much as possible in this situation, as we do swing 20 at the Vanguard with the other column. Definitely an interesting attack order, because Drag Driver is going to be calling out a ritual unit from the deck, and I would think that you kind of want to keep Maple there as an intercept, like, just in case. Like, in most cases, you probably just want to keep it there. Once again, this is Prison, so the chances that Maple is staying there till the battle phase is not really happening. But I would think you want to call over that Stride Fodder Dragon, because it is, or not Stride Fodder, the Stride Fodder grade 3, because, you know, it's going to die during the end phase anyway, so do you really want it there? Not really. But interestingly enough, we are going to be just, looks like, overcalling the Maple. I mean, I guess it does make a lot more sense, because without GB2, this dragon, or is he a dragon? He's probably a dragon. Isn't at 23, so swinging in this order means that that other column is hitting 29, and then with the crest 34. But at the same time, you do kind of just, like, lose out on our rear guard there. Like, these are fine attacks, and we do also see that we're playing more than one of that Stride Fodder Dragon, which is questionable. I don't really think Luard lists play that. But we do see a critical trigger there, putting all the effects on, I think it was the called out one. And then we have 2 more attacks here, and we do kind of have to finish there. We do have a lethal swing here for 38, which is definitely a nice number, but at the same time, it is just like a 2-card guard. You throw down 2 15k shields and you're totally fine. You don't even have to really worry about, you know, dying from the other one, which is why if he guards it here, as we do see the 30k guard there, I think you swing this last attack into that Aquas, just to get it off, where it's a really annoying rear guard. It is an 18k base currently, but I do think you need to swing at it. You can't kill with this attack, so you should probably just get rid of the most annoying rear guard. But looks like we are just going to attack the Vanguard. There really wasn't a reason to do that. You know, we kind of just gave them extra CB. We didn't need to. We could have reduced their attack. That wasn't a lethal swing anyway. You might as well have just tried and kill one of the rear guards. Maybe he would have guarded it, but that was still a pretty strong attack, so I think they probably just let it die in that situation. Looks like during the end phase, we are using 2 of the Owls to bind them and countercharge 2, which, you know, If we had just spent all of our counterblast during that last turn, maybe we could have used that. And I think that definitely could be a very viable play for Luard in this matchup, where you just kind of blast through all of your CB and then you just use your Abyssal Owls to like continuously countercharge. Gives you a lot of sustainability in this matchup. But that looks like that's, as we saw, that wasn't what happened. Anyways, we see the security upgrader being called here. I believe we did use the skill of both Seraph's Snow to imprison the grade 1s that were in the back row, as well as using the skill of the grade 1, which I have not bothered to learn the name of. Going to be imprisoning another one off the board, and then of course calling out the security upgrader, who is going to be using its skill to retire itself, imprisoning another card from the drop zone. Let's see, in this situation, maybe you just throw out the grade 3 dragon, because you kind of want your ritual count to stay there. But looks like we're going to be binding another grade 1, which is interesting. It puts us down to just ritual 2, which, you know, it's not going to be too hard to get back up to ritual 3, but still, you like, do you really want to go through all that effort? I mean, I probably wouldn't, but, you know, gonna be using the Seraph Pure Light skill for free, so like they didn't even need that extra CB, so the extra damage you gave them that last turn, I guess, doesn't really matter. But using the Seraph Pure Light, thanks to the way Luard kind of plays, the soul is completely empty, so we don't have it to worry about from there. But we do have to imprison the 1 rearguard circle, and then of course 2 cards from hand, which is actually going to let prison get to that all-important 10 cards in the prison. So now that Seraph Pure Light is going to be getting an extra 25 to the entire front row, and then of course everything is also going to be getting an extra critical, and with only, what is that, 5 or 6 cards in hand and no damage to take, this is looking very seriously bad for Luard. We can't even like take a single crit swing here, just because, you know, that doesn't even do anything, because, you know, everything's gonna be pinging for 2 damage. And looks like that extra CB that we gave the opponent is going to be coming up, because they're going to call down another one of those top 5 checkers, and they are going to be calling down an even more powerful unit. So numbers wise, it doesn't make a huge difference. Let's see, that would have been 26 versus 23. Yeah, not a huge numbers difference there, but I think the main impact that the extra CB you gave them is going to be having is just the ability to deck thin. You know, kind of just took another normal unit out of the deck. This is Seraph's kill turn, and definitely very feasible with only those 5 cards in hand. And I think Luard just kind of didn't bulk up sufficiently during that last turn. We kind of just did a whole bunch of swings, and we didn't even swing at our most powerful. So, you know, we just didn't bulk up. So Luard looking to be in a pretty rough position here, as we see the Pure Life swing for a very massive 51. 13 boosted by 13 plus another 25 is just going to make this an extremely difficult attack to guard. I think that you probably just PG this one, and then hopefully you have enough to guard the other ones. But at the same time, these things are really big. Like, that other one is 51, and this other one should be 56. Because they're essentially they're all 13k bases boosted by 13k boosters, and the only difference is that the Aquas has an extra 5k, so these are all really big. Those are all like 3 card guards. It's kind of just PG or bust here. I think you can maybe hard guard one of these. Like, if you had 2 PGs in your hand, you could probably hard guard one of them and then just PG, but at the same time, I was gonna say you're kind of in a bad situation, but actually Luard is really not. Looks like we're going for a 1 to pass, and first card flipped over is going to be heal trigger, so, you know, that's just gonna break through, and we're gonna be taking 2 damage here, and it's gonna put even more salt in the wound as we throw open a critical trigger, making this a 3 damage swing. So the first check is a 6 damage heal, but that second check is going to be a blank. So that is going to be the end of the match. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.